Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. We've got an interesting one today. We're going to be looking at Jenny Graves. She's a scientist, but
Not just any scientist. She's a geneticist. A&D, a musician. Like a real musician.
really, like what kind of music?
Well, she actually created an oratorio about science.
Whoa, hold on. An oratorio, like those big classical music pieces?
Yeah, exactly like one of those.
Wow, okay. I guess we'll learn more about that later on then. But first, so where'd you learn about her?
There was this really interesting article about her. It talked about all her research and stuff. And then,
About the music too.
yeah, it even had some of the lyrics from her oratorio in it.
Huh, okay, cool. So I guess we'll be diving deep into all that. Sounds pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. She's kind of like the opposite of what you'd picture when you think of a scientist.
Yeah, I mean, when I think scientist, I definitely don't think classical music composer.
Right, exactly. Like you don't often find someone who can decipher DNA and then turn around and write an oratorio about it all.
I know, right? It's kind of wild. So where do we even begin with someone like that?
Well, the article actually starts with her childhood. She got really fascinated by budgies.
Budgies, like those little parakeets?
Yeah, those ones. She learned about how their colors were determined by their genes and...
Oh, so that's what sparked your interest in genetics.
Yeah, it was a high school lesson that totally changed the course of her life.
That's pretty cool, like a single classroom experience leading to all that.
It really shows you how a simple concept can have a huge impact.
So did she, like, study budgies in college or something?
Well, she ended up going to Berkeley on a Fulbright scholarship. It was the 60s.
Oh, wow. Berkeley in the 60s. That must have been quite the scene.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But even with everything going on around her, she kept up her interest in music. In theater, too.
Really? So she was like a singing scientist running around Berkeley in the 60s?
Pretty much. She even starred in a musical parody.
No way. What was it about?
It was called Nucleoside Story.
Huh.
Mm.
Get it. Like West Side Story.
Yeah. It was about all these competing science departments.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
she was like a total creative whiz even back then. But hold on, we've totally gotten sidetracked here. What about her actual research? You mentioned genetics.
Right, so after Berkeley, she really dove into this whole world of marsupials.
Marsupials.
Yeah.
Like kangaroos and stuff.
Yeah, and all sorts of other Australian marsupials. She was looking at their genomes.
They're what now?
Genomes, it's basically like all the DNA in an organism. And she was using this technique called comparative genomics. It's kind of like...
Wait, hold on. Can you explain that a little more? What's comparative genomics?
Okay, so imagine you have a bunch of jigsaw puzzles, but they're all from different pictures, but maybe like slightly different versions of the same picture.
Okay, kind of feeling.
So with comparative genomics, you're basically comparing the genomes of different species to see how they're similar and how they're different. And by looking at those similarities and differences, you can figure out how they've evolved over time.
Ah, okay, I see. So she was like putting together these evolutionary jigsaw puzzles using marsupial DNA.
Exactly. And by comparing them to other mammals, including humans, she found some really interesting things, especially about the X chromosome.
The X chromosome, that's the one that determines sex, right?
Right. So there was this idea called Ono's law that said the X chromosome was pretty much the same across all mammals. But
she found something different.
yeah, she found all these variations in the marsupial X chromosome, which basically meant that Ono's law wasn't always true.
Wow, so she like overturned this big scientific law by studying kangaroos. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, it was a pretty big deal. It really shook things up in the scientific community.
Well, she sounds like someone who's not afraid to challenge the status quo. Is that kind of a theme with her?
Definitely. And that actually leads us to another one of her big discoveries, which is maybe a little bit controversial.
Oh, no.
Well, she basically predicted that the human Y chromosome is shrinking and that it could actually disappear entirely in a few million years.
Wait, what? The Y chromosome, the one that makes men, men.
Yeah, that one. She said it's slowly disappearing.
So like no more men in a few million years.
Oh, I think I remember this actually being in the news a while back. It really freaks some people out.
Yeah, it definitely got people talking, but it also raised a lot of important questions about like the future of our species and how sex is determined and all that.
Yeah, that's heavy stuff. It's crazy how one scientist's research can just like completely change how we understand something so fundamental.
It really shows you how dynamic and constantly evolving our understanding of the world is, right?
Totally. So she challenged this big scientific law. A&D predicted the potential end of the Y chromosome, all before what, like 40?
Well, actually, during all of this, she had a major health setback, a brain hemorrhage.
Oh, wow, that's awful. Did she have to like stop her research?
Nope. Apparently she was writing grant proposals while she was recovering.
Seriously, talk about dedication. Like, she wasn't going to let a brain hemorrhage slow her down. It's pretty incredible. And it wasn't just research either. She also came up with all these innovative ways to teach science to her students.
Oh, yeah. Like what kind of stuff?
Well, she'd like serenade them with genetics-themed songs.
Wait, what? She like wrote songs about genetics?
Yeah, The Mutant's Lament and Love's a Plasmid, things like that.
That's hilarious. I bet her students love that. So much better than boring old lectures.
It sounds like her classes were anything but boring. She had a real knack for making science fun and engaging.
I mean, she clearly has this incredible creative energy. From musical parodies to genetic songs. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, but we haven't even talked about her oratorio yet.
That's right. We still need to dive into that. It's where her love for science and music really come together in this grand, epic masterpiece.
All right, well, I'm definitely intrigued. Let's get into it then.
Okay, so...
All right, so we've got this scientist who's already, like, broken a major scientific law.
Yeah.
A&D predicted the disappearance of the Y chromosome. And on top of that, she's writing and performing genetic songs.
Oh, and starring in musicals. Don't forget the musicals.
Of course, the musicals.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to this whole oratorio thing.
Yeah, origins of the universe, of life, of species, of humanity.
Catchy title. I mean, what even inspired her to create something like that?
Well, it sounds like she wanted to show, like, both sides of science. The beauty of it and the challenges.
Okay, so not just like a dry recitation of facts.
Right, more like using music to express the awe and wonder of scientific discovery, but also some of the struggles.
I could see how music could be a really powerful way to do that, especially with something as big as the origin of the universe and everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking these huge, complex ideas and making them accessible and even emotional.
And she wasn't afraid to get a little controversial with it either, right?
Oh, definitely not. She made a point of highlighting Rosalind Franklin's contribution to discovering DNA.
Oh, right. The woman who basically got written out of the history books.
Exactly. And Graves was like, nope, we're going to give her the credit she deserves.
That's awesome. It's like she's using this oratorio to set the record straight.
Yeah, and also to kind of remind us that scientific progress isn't always a straight line. There are all these twists and turns, and sometimes people get overlooked along the way.
It definitely makes you think about those hidden figures in science, the ones who don't always get the recognition they should.
Totally. Okay, but let's talk about the music itself for a second. Like,
Yeah.
What is it actually like to listen to this oratorio?
Yeah, I'm picturing like a bunch of people in robes chanting about DNA.
Haha. No, it's not quite like that. It's more like a journey. It starts with the Big Bang, and then it goes through all these different stages of like the formation of the universe and the emergence of life, and then eventually all the way up to humans.
So like a musical history of everything.
Exactly. And the music is really grand and epic. It really captures the scale of it all.
I bet. So is it like traditional oratorio stuff? Or did she mix it up a bit?
Well, there's one verse that goes, "No cosmic hand guides diversity."
Whoa. Okay, that's not something you hear in your typical church oratorio.
Right. I mean, it's pretty bold, especially for the time.
Yeah, I can imagine that ruffled some feathers. People who maybe had a more traditional view of creation.
Oh, definitely. But that's Graves for you. Always pushing boundaries and challenging those assumptions.
It's like she's inviting the audience to really think about these big questions. About the nature of the universe and our place in it.
Yeah, and she's not giving them easy answers either. It's more about sparking that sense of wonder and encouraging people to grapple with the complexity of it all.
Through music.
Through music, which is pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. I mean, this woman is just full of surprises. She breaks scientific laws, predicts the end of the Y chromosome, writes genetic songs, stars in musicals, and creates epic oratorios about the origins of the universe.
And all while recovering from a brain hemorrhage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost forgot about that. Seriously, is there anything this woman can't do?
Well, actually, the article did mention one thing. She refused to sing something she didn't believe in.
Really? What happened?
One of the tenors in the choir actually walked out during rehearsals.
No way. What was it about?
His beliefs about creation clashed with the scientific perspective of the oratorio.
Wow. Okay, so she's not afraid to stand up for her convictions.
Not at all, which I kind of admire, you know? Like, it's easy to just go along with things, but to really stand up for what you believe in, that takes courage.
Definitely. So she's brilliant, talented, groundbreaking, controversial, and principled.
Sounds about right.
And on top of all that, she still manages to find joy and wonder in science.
You can totally feel that in her work. It's like she's saying, yes, science is complex. Yes, it can be challenging. But ultimately, it's a source of incredible beauty and inspiration.
Yeah, it's not about having all the answers. It's about that constant curiosity and that drive to learn and explore.
And being open to new ways of thinking and doing things.
Like combining science and music. Who would have thought?
Right. But it totally works. And it makes you wonder what other kinds of crazy combinations are out there just waiting to be discovered.
Like maybe there's someone out there who's going to write a symphony about the stock market or choreograph a ballet about astrophysics.
Maybe. I mean, who knows what's possible when you start thinking outside the box?
Exactly. So what do you think is like the big takeaway here for our listeners? What should they walk away with after diving deep into Jenny Gray's world?
I think for me, it's that reminder that science is so much more than just memorizing facts and formulas. It's about like this real passion for understanding the world. And sometimes it takes something totally unexpected like music to bring that to life.
Yeah, and she actually said in the article, if she hadn't created Origins, no one else would have. She really felt like it was this unique thing that she had to bring into the world.
It really makes you think, like what other crazy combinations are out there? Someone who can challenge scientific laws with marsupials and then turn around and write an oratorio. Like, what's next?
What seemingly impossible thing could you achieve?
Right, exactly. It's like what unexpected connections can you make between your work and your hobbies or whatever? I mean, think about it. What might seem like totally separate interests could actually be the key to something amazing.
Yeah. Maybe you love baking and the astrophysics. Boom. You create a whole new field of like edible planetary models.
Exactly. Or maybe you're really into fashion and biology and you end up designing like clothes that can monitor your health.
See, the possibilities are endless.
It's all about finding those intersections and just letting your creativity run wild.
So that's the big takeaway, right? Don't limit yourself. Don't be afraid to combine your passions and your knowledge in unexpected ways, like Jenny Graves did.
The world needs more people who are willing to push those boundaries.
Absolutely. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Jenny Graves.
It's been a wild ride.
It really has.
All
Hopefully you're all walking away with like this renewed sense of wonder and a little bit more curiosity about the world around you. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep creating. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.